me now is Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford. He is part of that Republican working group in the Senate, putting together a package on police reform. Senator, good to see you. Let me start with I think I know where the common ground is, but in your words, you know this House Democratic bill. Where is the overlap as far as you're concerned with what you're working on and what they've proposed?
So we can do a lot of areas of transparency. For instance, that's common ground. We've got to be able to get data and information out there. If we've got personnel records that are not made available to law enforcement when they're doing hiring, that's a major issue. If someone dies in police custody, about 40% of the departments nationwide already turned that information to the FBI. We need to get that out there more. We need to be able to deal with body cameras and not just have body cameras, but to be able to have incentives to be able to keep them on. We have times that mysteriously body cameras have gone off. We need to make sure that both the technology is there to be able to have it on automatically if needed, or that they don't turn off on it. So those are basic areas. We've got different areas, like we're trying to work on recruiting. We want to incentivize African-American recruiters in different areas so we can get more officers, and also incentivize for folks if they want to be able to join the force, that they can then do that. And there's an incentive to say, if your force does not match the ethnicity or community, we need to incentivize that type of activity. So there's several things that we've got that we don't think are going to be controversial, but we want to be able to try to get all these things in and get as much things as we can done.
It seems as if there is going to be a negotiation or dispute, or you may run into something. It's on the issue of the qualified immunity issue. The White House has said it's a non-starter, but there are Republicans that are in favor of seeing that. I know Rand Paul is among those. Where are you on that issue, Senator?
Yeah, so I'm actually trying to go through and find another option for it, because qualified immunity, I'm hearing every side of it. I understand where we're coming from. This is not a partisan issue. This is a how do we provide the opportunity for someone who's had someone die in custody unjustly to then bring civil suits against that individual as well. There may be other ways to be able to attack this, but what I don't want to have is a situation where every member of law enforcement is having to second guess everything and hesitates, because we all know they do make life or death decisions every single day. We can't put them at risk, but we also have to be able to hold them and the departments to account when someone is outside the statute. So we are seriously looking through that to see if there's a way to be able to deal with this that both honors people that are making very rapid, sudden decisions and very violent experiences that are happening on the street, and still be able to protect the lives of and the families of those individuals had someone taken from them.
By the way, one area that I didn't ask you about that you didn't bring up and maybe overlooked it, the issue of the military equipment to police departments. There's some people that would like to see that practice ended. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I think there's certain aspects of military equipment that definitely don't need to be used. There's no reason to have, for instance, gun mounts on vehicles and such. That should never be used in a civilian use. You should never have bayonets and grenade launchers. There's lots of military equipment that's not prohibited now that needs to clearly be prohibited in every way. We also need to have a chain of custody. We never want to have a situation where we've got some materials, night vision goggles, for instance. I can understand how certain groups of folks within law enforcement, if they're going in, that they want to be able to have some visibility in that has a reasonable civilian use. But we'd never want those to be able to fall into civilian hands as well. So we've got to have a good chain of custody. So there are areas that we need to be able to resolve, even in that zone.
What is the important? Obviously, if the president signs off on what you and Senator Scott and the Republican working group come up with, it would answer the question I'm about to ask. But if he does not give you an indication of where he is in some of these issues, are you willing to go forward with a bill and sort of say, okay, we'll pass a bill in the Senate, they'll pass a bill in the House, we'll try to reconcile those two bills and send it to the president? Or do you want to avoid sending a bill to the president that you're not sure he will sign?
I think in this case, like a lot of other difficult cases, this is a situation where the House, the Senate, and the White House have got to agree to make a law. Let's all three work to be able to do it. My understanding is the president is going to put out executive orders of things that they feel like they have the authority to be able to do on the federal law enforcement, but they're also going to make recommendations on legislation. We've not seen what those recommendations are. Obviously, we've seen what the House recommendations are at this point. We're going to make our recommendations available next week, probably by Wednesday, to be able to get these out. We'll have a big conversation, try to figure out what a final bill really looks like.
I want to ask you about the decision by the Senate Armed Services Committee to vote to start the process of possibly changing the names of some of those southern military installations that use some Confederate generals. Where are you on that issue? Are you supportive of seeing these names changed?
Yeah, entirely reasonable to be able to study it, take a look at it, and make a determination of it. You got to ask the hard question of why was it named that way? Several of these bases have had several names over the years. We have a lot of modern day warriors that are great role models, like Tommy Franks is one that comes to mind, who's an incredible role model for the next generation of soldiers. So I think there are a lot of people that are out there that are modern day that we can rename. And I think it's very reasonable to be able to go back and be able to take a look at this. Again, I look at bases like
you say
I look
take
at
a look.
schools.
Yeah.
I just say I look at bases like I look at schools. If the name of a school is supposed to be a role model for those kids, if that person's not a role model for those kids, then why wouldn't we look at changing that name? Same thing for bases. If we're trying to be able to train people at that facility, the person that's named after is not a good role model as an American soldier or leader. Why wouldn't we look at changing that? So I think it's a matter of exactly what Armed Services is putting out at this point. Take a look at it, evaluate it, what's the best way to do it, because there's a lot of decisions that have to be made in the process on that, and then make the name changes where necessary.
I have to ask you about the president picking Tulsa as his first place for a public rally. Obviously, this is your home state. He used Juneteenth. I have heard that some Republicans have made it known to the White House that they would love to see the president pick another day. Would you like to see the president pick another day than Juneteenth for his Tulsa rally?
Yeah, Juneteenth, let me just say it this way, big day for Emancipation Day. Quite frankly, it's a big day all over the country, but it's also a big day for Republicans as well. Obviously, it was a Republican president that declared emancipation, so that is significant to Republicans as well. It's our founding president and founding principles about equality and opportunity for everyone. I think there are other opportunities for other days the president could look at. If he wants to be able to come, quite frankly, I said the same thing when President Obama was president. He's welcome to come to Oklahoma anytime. He's the president of the United States. President Trump is welcome to come to Oklahoma anytime he is the president of the United States. So we're glad to be able to host him at whatever moment. The nation is in a big conversation about race right now. I would assume the president would talk about race at that moment as well. And that day, among many days, are great days to be able to have this kind of national conversation.
Very curious. If it came for a vote, would you vote yes for Juneteenth as a federal holiday?
You know what? We've got a lot of federal holidays, but that's one that I think should be recognized. It is a big event. I know a lot of businesses already look at that as a federal holiday, but I'd have to go back and look. Obviously, every time you add a federal holiday, that adds a lot of expense and a lot of other issues that go with that. So I don't want to jump in and decide on the air, but I can tell you that's a significant day, and some groups already use that as a holiday.
Senator James Lankford, Republican from Oklahoma, always a pleasure to get your perspective, and thank you for coming on the show, sir.
Thanks, Chuck.